Welcome to the Health and Healing Podcast with me, Sophia, where I talk all things to do with health and healing, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I share insights from personal stories, client wins, chats with other practitioners, and offer nourishing support for those navigating the healing path. Now, if you are wanting to feel healthier, more at home in your body, and in love with your life, then you are in the right place, my love. Enjoy the episode. This is actually something I find really interesting is I've started to talk to people more about it, particularly with autoimmunity, and it seems like it's more complex than like every case is so different or can be so different. And while there's certain standard ways to approach it and address it, it can actually look so different for everyone, and it depends on the trigger and it depends on what is actually flaring it up and creating it for you in the first place. And this is why I'm like, the power then, I think, is in having conversations with people who have experienced it, who have moved through it and found their own journey of healing, and compiling all that information together and giving other people resources and options for what that could look like for them. And it might not be this, it might not be that, but it could be this version. And it's like, I think that's so powerful and important because there's so much like standardized information out there of do this, or you need immunosuppressants, or you need thyroid hormone, or you need to only eat this food, or what, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But actually, it could be very, very different for someone, and
Yeah.
and it could feel very isolating for that person if they tried all these things and none of it was working. But actually realizing that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them as such. It's just like, well, maybe we haven't uncovered your
Yeah.
reason, your root
Yeah.
cause, and that's part of the journey. And the more I've really delved into health, the more I realize how layered it is, how we know certain things, but there's so much we don't know.
Mhm.
And it's not about going back to how you were living before and who you were before, but it's about finding a new way moving forward. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very excited to yeah, have this conversation, and that's why I was like, I'll just start reaching out to people. I was like, do you want to talk about it? Like, do you want to share your insights? And like you were saying, is
Yeah.
you haven't really talked about it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, good opportunity. And it will be really good for you and your work and your business as well,
Yeah.
because I'm sure it's some
Yeah.
information you can pass on to clients you see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's probably one of the things I
Yeah.
would get you to start to talk
Yeah.
about or introduce yourself. Like, what do you do in your work, and tying that into your symptoms and your,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. So my work is well in kinesiology, but
Mm,
it all kind of for me, like I passionately love helping people with a big picture view and working on multi levels because that was my journey. And I
yeah.
guess like kinesiology began because of where I was at. So it
Mm,
was, I navigated as I became a mum being pregnant. I was in a car crash when I was 34 weeks pregnant, and that led to PTSD, which I navigated through with the tools that I had at the time, thinking that I was kind of delving into that and that I'd kind of worked through it. But what I soon unfolded is that I really only touched the surface because when I had my second child 2.5 years later, I then got severe postnatal anxiety. And so when that happened, I thought I had all the tools and kind of knew what I was doing, and I was fixing, like, gotta fix, gotta fix, gotta fix. So I had this real energy of like fixing, can't be here, it's got to be fixed. And so I went through the allopathic system and went on medication and tried that for like 6 or 8 weeks, hoping it would make a difference, but it actually made me worse. So I left that for about, yeah, 2 months and then came off it. And then kind of that's where my journey really began because it was like I was eating all the right foods, what I thought were the right foods. I was exercising, I was working on my mindset. But looking back at that beautiful part of me, it was like she was doing like 75,000 things. And this is all part of my journey and why I want to share today as well. Because what kind of happened about 8 months after the postnatal anxiety, when I was still heavily into it, I discovered kinesiology. And that's what really opened my eyes to this new way of thinking of what I was dealing with. It's like it wasn't that there was something wrong with me and that I was broken. It was like, wow, something has happened here with your nervous system and your body, and it's kind of exploded in my face. And so as I discovered kinesiology, that was like close to like maybe 8 or 10 months after the postnatal anxiety. And as I was doing that, kind of maybe just before that, actually, about a month or two before that, I went to a functional doctor because I was like, man, like I've this has been like 9 months, like what's going on? And I got some functional tests done. I'd been to the doctors, they said everything was fine. I went to the functional doctor, can't remember her name, she was in Wellington, and then all my tests came back. And so it was like adrenals, cortisol, like through the roof, but cortisol shows low when you've got too much of it. And then their thyroids came up. So it was like yeah, the high TSH, all the antibodies, T3, T4 were all out of whack. I had like not only the thyroid reading, but I had like 6 hormones and all my thyroid stuff that were completely out of whack. So that's when I was like, wow, okay, what's going on here? And I was like, okay, another layer.
Mm.
And then I went straight on because I was in such a state. I wasn't in a place where I had capacity to think past my situation. It was dire where I was. I went straight on the medication with the functional doctor, sorry, and went on that and was on that for about 2 months. And actually, that's when I discovered kinesiology because it was just before that and started kinesiology. And then it was like another layer like, wow, my nervous system has essentially exploded from the inside out because of everything that happened with the crash and the PTSD. And that was like a real big light bulb. I was like, oh my God, I'm not broken, but this needs support. So I started the kinesiology. As soon as I had my first session, I was like, bam, I want to be a kinesiologist. This is amazing, and started doing that about 5 months later. But in the 5 months of when I found it and when I began studying it, I had all my sessions. And what happened, about 4 out of the 5 hormones that I was on, I was able to come off. So my blood started regulating, my hormones started coming down, my adrenals were coming down, and I was just like, that for me was like, holy, what is this? Like this new way of approaching things. So I was actually able to come off like within 6 months-ish. I was able to come off, yeah, 4 out of the 5 HRT hormones that I was on supporting me.
Mm.
And then it was the thyroid. And so the thyroid was kind of responding, but not really. And this is kind of where it began. I was like, okay, what am I doing here? And I guess one thing that I've been, I guess, blessed with is having an open mind. I'm actually an open head center in human design and calling on support when I need it. So I'm always kind of like, I don't just take anything for an answer. And that's probably why I am here today, because I didn't just take the doctor's answer or, the functional doctor. I thought bigger and brighter. And so from the kinesiology, when all the levels came down, then I moved to a naturopath, and we worked quite heavily on like, yeah, diet and then some supplementation with some herbs and stuff. And my TSH did start responding. And that was quite cool to see that coming down. I was like, okay, cool. So there's a correlation here between what I'm eating, what I'm doing, and how I'm looking after my body. But th it wasn't where it needed to be. And my with the new naturopath, my antibodies kept climbing, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And that's when I kind of started investigating and found out about autoimmunity. I was like, "What triggered this?" And she actually said, normally, and this is quite a big light bulb as well. She said, normally when autoimmunity happens, it kind of tracks back to an event that triggered something. And so we tracked it back to the car crash. I was like, boom, the car crash kicked off the autoimmunity in my body. But
Mm.
I didn't realize it. So I didn't know I was in this autoimmunity flare up. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, cool. And as I was going through this journey, after the naturopath, we figured out there was some hereditary stuff in my generational line. So my mum then got her thyroid levels checked. Lo and behold,
Mm.
she's got Hashimoto's too. My
Yeah.
sister, who went through postpartum not long after that, lo and behold, she had a different type, postpartum thyroid bombitis. Don't quote me on
Right.
that. So she had that too. So that was where my eyes started opening in those senses. And like it was such a journey since then. So do I walk through more of the journey and what happened after that as well?
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
for
So what
it.
happened? So I had the naturopath, the TSH started responding, and then the antibodies kept climbing, and I was like, what's going on here? Like, and that's when the metaphysical elements came in. And what I started realizing was that, aha, thyroid communication, like operating out of alignment, in alignment. I was like, what's going on here? Like, there's something more than just the food, the eating, like autoimmune protocol-ish. And then what's this other element? And so that's when I started delving into that. And I had started studying kinesiology, I started practicing it, and then I was like, okay, whoa, there's so much more metaphysically going on here with my thyroid.
Mm.
And so I kind of worked with a naturopath, stopped after about 6 months. I did get some results, and I was like, okay, there's more here. There's the metaphysical element. And that's where I kind of started delving into that through my kinesiology and starting my practice, which was like maybe a year and a half after that, I started my practice. I found like a hormone balance that I started doing myself and also with my tutor. And then all this metaphysical stuff started coming out for me around, yeah, expression, communication, not feeling like I can express myself properly. And it kind of like there was another big piece around the burden that I was carrying. And this is the whole metaphysical element. And when I kind of clicked, I was like, I'm showing these responses. My mum's showing it, my sister's showing it. And we went back further. So I went back further with kinesiology and with some other practitioners I worked on, Akashic Records and a few other practitioners, back to my generational line. And this was a huge, huge, huge thing that I was carrying as well in the metaphysical element, the burden. And it wasn't just me in my life because of what I was going through. Yes, it was intense and stressful, but it felt bigger than that. And so I figured out actually with the help of practitioners myself that it went way back to like my great great grandmother and the
Mm.
burden of her. She actually lost her husband and had 6 children. She had a farm that they were on, and she was left alone with the 6 children.
Mm.
And the burden and the kind of like overdoing herself and looking after others and not looking after herself and people pleasing and like never feeling enough or worthy came right down the generational line. So that's kind of my eyes open to that. And I was like, whoa, this has clearly got something to do with my thyroid. And so I, yeah, started working on the metaphysical element, and my results were kind of so coming up and down. And then it wasn't until when I started practicing kinesiology, the first year I really went into it after COVID, I actually took on a part-time role. That part-time role was what I figured out was actually out of alignment with how I needed to operate in the world, which is much more like out of my masculine, in my feminine, into my intuition, slowing, pausing, allowing myself time. And then I went into that role while still doing my business, and I had a massive flare up. So my levels were kind of coming down a little bit, and then boom, took on that role, and then TSH through the roof. It was at like 10. And then I kind of got the message. I was like, whoa, I need to let go of that and go fully into my kinesiology and just work on what's best for me and what's best for my system. Around that sort of time, I discovered human design, and I was like, wow. And that's obviously your blueprint for how you operate in the world. And I discovered that I am a defined throat chakra, which I hadn't been operating in alignment in that. And I'd kind of been, not saying what I thought. And there was this whole piece on communication. And so, yeah, that year after taking on that role, I got myself out of my flare up. I did like a whole bunch of things. I always had periods where I would not drink alcohol, eat really clean. But what I sort of noticed, and this is really interesting with someone with autoimmunity, because I had tendencies of like overdoing it, people pleasing, and trying to fix and change, every time I went into a really, really, really rigid protocol, things flared up again. So
Mm.
I had to find this balance, and this was really key to my whole journey recently. I find a balance where it is, structured and you follow a framework, but there is a little bit of flow because my system needed that. And
Yeah.
as soon as I found that little balance, that's where I kind of like the Hashimoto's went into what do you call it? Remission. So then the Hashimoto's went into remission, and I came out of what's called the Hashimoto flare up, and I am now just working with thyroid levels. And so that was probably like, I think that was March 2023 when I finally came into remission. And it was through that period over that last year of dealing with it that I actually came off the thyroid medication. I'd been on it for 3 years, but I felt through the kinesiology, through working with practitioners, and in my own intuition that it was time for me to move out of that. So I came off the medication, and yeah, worked through it myself and then went into remission. in March
Oh.
2023. So that was really cool. I was like, oh my God, like I didn't think that was even possible. But for me, it was a real journey of like understanding the allopathic world and being on the medication when I really needed it, knowing that it's not just what you eat and what you do, but there's also this big element of like how you behave, what you think, how you treat yourself. And it was for me, it was really this big thing combined with those that gave me this big breakthrough and coming into remission. And sort of since then, since I've been in remission, there's been various things I've done. I've used frequency with a little Healy device. I'm running that now. That helped me shift through a lot of the generational burden that I was carrying, which released a whole lot from my system. And essentially, since 2023, moving through 2024, I moved to Queenstown. That environmental shift, moving from Auckland to Queenstown, had a big flare up for my thyroid. But I actually realized I was like, ah, okay, so this move in an environmental factor affected my thyroid, which also was tied to metaphysical stuff I was going through as well, because I had to move through a lot of like letting go of what people thought of me and caring too much about, yeah, what I say in front of others. And when I moved through that, I've been able to just, yeah, came out of that flare up. And it's like I've been managing my thyroid with metaphysical elements and with actual Western and physical elements as now. So
Hmm.
yeah, now I'm in sort of a management of it. My levels are still coming down. The antibodies haven't come back, but I have actually taken the approach that I've dropped the label of I have this, and I'm actually like I'm managing my symptoms, and I base my stuff off how I feel. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. It was quite a
Yeah.
long spiel.
Yeah. I have a couple questions on that because it does sound like a journey, and this is something that seems to be so common with autoimmunity
Mhm.
is there's the different factors to it. One, there is the genetic component,
Yeah.
right? It often runs in a family. And then there's the environmental factors,
Mhm.
like toxins and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And there's like infection, like something
Yeah.
can trigger it. Like you can have
Mhm.
the predisposition to autoimmunity but never develop it if
Yeah.
you've never come across the trigger. But like for you, you explored that
Mhm.
being the car crash, right?
Yeah.
And so something has to have happened for the body to respond in that way and perceive a
Mhm.
threat.
Mhm.
And the thing with autoimmunity is I think a lot of people understand it as there's something wrong with me because my body is attacking itself.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important to distinguish that your body is actually highly intelligent
Mhm.
and it's not attacking itself. There's something stuck in the body, it wants to get out, and
Yeah.
your tissues are implicated in that journey.
Yeah.
And so, whether that is physical, whether that's mold, whether that's parasitic, whether that's viral,
Mhm.
or whether that's emotional trauma,
Mhm.
what I wanted to really ask you is there's a couple questions that I have. What
Mhm.
does a flare up look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, a flare up looks like my skin gets really dry. I notice a bit of like hair loss. Now, those my like generally when I had Hashimoto's, I didn't have heaps of that, but yeah, dry skin. And hair loss. But in the early days of a flare up, it was just like quite emotional overwhelm. Like what I actually discovered is that the thyroid is like metaphysically your protector from negativity. And so
Mm,
it's like this beautiful little, like it's shaped like a butterfly. It's this beautiful little thing that protects you when it's out of alignment. You're just like, you're wayward with the chaos of the world. So early days, my flare ups were like, overwhelm and like just negativity, feeling like I have no protection. And I'm just like, standing on the mountain and the wind blowing around is what it felt like. But as I manage my symptoms now, I can tell, yeah, I'm not sweating as much. Like if I go to the gym and I'm like, I notice there's not much sweat. Yeah, my skin gets really dry, and then my hair, I can just notice a bit of it coming out. So the symptoms have calmed down quite a bit now. Like technically, in my like last year's flare up, there wasn't heaps, that was just mainly dry skin. But yeah, mainly those three things. And I guess there is a little bit of libido stuff as well, like just not feeling very in my feminine and my sexuality. So that kind of showed up as well. So yeah, it was mainly those things. And I can just kind of tell, I can feel it now. I'm like, oh, something's off here. And there will always be an emotional element of like overwhelm and my system pushing, 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 trying to fix that does show up as well, like on a metaphysical sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the keys, right? Is when you're navigating with autoimmunity or any kind of chronic symptoms,
Mm.
it's about getting to know them
Yeah.
and getting to understand that, like, the patterns and when they come up, and
Mhm.
that, yeah, they can settle again. They might come up again, but it's just knowing the ebbs and the flows and knowing
Mhm.
your signs and symptoms and how you can then yeah, navigate that and work with it instead
Mhm.
of what can happen is like people panic and worry and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
which adds to the emotional stress, which
Yep.
adds to the symptoms.
Yep.
Um, and so, yeah, one of the things I think would be really helpful for you to kind of elaborate on, because you've mentioned kinesiology a lot and that's what
Mhm.
you do,
Mhm.
is just to describe what that practice is, because I'm sure there'll be people that
Yep.
don't know what that is and how
Yep.
that can have a role in a healing journey and whether
Yeah.
it's autoimmune or any other kind of condition.
Yeah, so kinesiology is it comes down from like applied kinesiology. So chiropractors use muscle testing when they're working with the back, and you might have noticed that if anyone's been to a chiropractor. So the type of kinesiology that I studied in and trained in is called ICPKP. So it comes down from applied kinesiology, and there's also another modality called touch for health that people might have heard on. So essentially how it works is you use muscle testing to connect into the body's innate wisdom. So you bypass not, the conscious mind is only 5% of what we're thinking, but you deeply can get into the unconscious and subconscious layers. And what kinesiology does with the muscle testing is it allows you to pick up stress and imbalances and anything that the body's navigating. And the way I kind of explain it is we go through life and we have these symptoms that we're experiencing. So they kind of sit up here. What kinesiology does is we talk through the symptoms, we use muscle testing, which actually connects right into the body and gets to the bits that are a little bit stuck and not seen and allows a path for them to be dissipated. And so, how it works is that with the muscle testing, we connect into the body, and when you work on multi layers, so mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial, social, and energetic with the metaphysical element, and when you're working with all the layers, that's how you can get long lasting, sustainable change because it doesn't look at one aspect like this, it looks at everything altogether. So for me, it's been hugely transformative because I came in being like, there's something wrong with me, I need to be fixed. And it was like, hey, your body's in major stress. The fear that you were carrying on a cellular level from the car crash has put your body into shock. And actually, the way that you've been operating is like looking after others and not looking after yourself. And these tendencies aren't serving your body anymore. And so I got this really big picture like, whoa, this is bigger than I'm broken and I need to be fixed. It's like, aha,
Yeah.
my body is communicating to me these things. And actually, what kinesiology does is it's gentle but profound. So it works on the basis that your body is willing to go at. So it's not like a really intense, like, it's like your body shows what it's willing to release. And it's
Yeah.
like peeling back the onion layers. So, yeah, through muscle testing, we combine Western philosophies, which could be like muscle stuff or like anything to do with the physical body that you kind of know of, removing and adding foods. Then we combine Eastern philosophies, which is like meridians, acupunctures, there's auras, chakras. I use all of those. Then there's this whole bioenergetic field, energetic, quantum, this element. So kinesiology applies all of that on all levels, and that's why the journey's such a big holistic picture because you work in a big way. It's not just in one tunnel vision way. So for
Mm.
me, it's been like multi layers, as you mentioned. There's been so many elements to my journey, but it was like, how is how am I operating? It's not serving me right now, and this is what the body's saying. These are the things that's going on in my body, and oh my God, I actually have the power to make a different choice and to change my life from working like this. And so, yeah, really empowering modality.
Yeah. And yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Like muscle testing is so
Mm,
fascinating
mm,
and
mm,
yeah, how it works and how it communicates to the body and the
mm,
cells as
mhm.
opposed to, us getting stuck in our head with things.
Yes. And it's all about
Um,
dropping out of the head into the heart. That's one of the biggest things. That's my recent journey that I know I'm
y-
supporting people with.
yeah, yeah. And that it's so true. And I think for a lot of people in the healing journey, they go through that phase of trying to really make sense of everything and try to find the answers and trying to
Yeah.
fix it and like
Yeah.
there's something wrong with me and I need to I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. I
Yeah.
need to be on all this medication.
Yeah.
And the way I don't have an issue with medication. I think,
Yeah.
like you
Me
said,
too.
there's a time and a place, and it can really support people temporarily.
Yeah.
Um, Most of the time, temporarily. Sometimes people do need things long term.
Yeah.
But it's just this idea that the body is so designed to heal itself that the more we resist the experience,
Mhm.
the more we kind of give it what it needs to continue growing.
Mhm.
Whereas if we were to, yeah, really tune in and really listen to the experience and let it teach us and let it guide us and let it show us. And
Mhm.
often I find as well, like you'll have this too, I have this, it really helps to see someone. It really helps to work
100%.
work with people
Yeah.
because sometimes we don't see our own
Mhm.
blocks,
Mhm.
and every practitioner needs their own practitioner, and like whether that is chiropractic, kinesiology, like energy work,
Mhm.
anything that resonates with you that calls your name,
Mhm.
it can really help your body reset and recalibrate. And so I think the key thing with people when they have autoimmunity is to sometimes, to a point, look for an answer.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there's only so many answers you're going to get. There's a lot of confusion around autoimmunity. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff where you're not going to get the answer you want. There's
Yeah.
no, here's the band-aid, it's going to fix your
Yeah.
problems. It's
Yeah.
like, it's relearning how to live in your new body.
Yeah.
Things have changed. And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a bad thing, but like the way you've described it is it now gives you insights and parameters as to what works for you and what doesn't. And those signals are extremely clear and extremely loud, which
Mhm.
means it's helping you move through your life with
Mhm.
more intention and with more clarity and with more purpose.
Yeah.
And so yeah, some people will be like, oh, I just want to go back to my old life. I want to go back to how I was doing things before. And, um, you know, this thing has happened to me and it's not fair. And we all go through that journey.
Yeah.
We all go through the journey of like wanting to feel really sorry for ourselves. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of grief as well, because we still remember what it felt like before and things were different.
Mhm.
And that's really important to honor. But
Mm.
then it's also about learning how we can step into this new evolution of ourselves and to really learn to honor the body now that it's a bit different and now that it needs new things. And I think one of the really key things with autoimmunity is stress and that stress factor and how it sits in the body and how we internalize and process our surroundings and the information around us. And, like personally as well, I had a lot of stress. And
Mm.
while I've never been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, in my interpretation of my blood work, I do have a Hashimoto's response. My
Mm.
antibodies are not over the marker,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
they're high enough for me to be like, I'm still having a Hashimoto's response because there's antibodies in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've had all these symptoms that point towards autoimmunity. And this is something else I actually wanted to talk about is people think, oh, I'm diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. Now the journey begins. No, no,
Mm.
no. Autoimmunity has so many pre-symptoms and signals,
Mhm.
and there's different stages of it. And
Mhm.
oftentimes people start to address it when it's already bad and they've got all these high markers or low markers and it's all over the place. But the signs and symptoms start before that, before it's picked up. And the sooner you can address it,
Mhm.
the less it will progress potentially if you know handle it the right way. So I think it's really important, and this is where kinesiology and
Mhm.
any kind of muscle work or energy work can really support people. I can imagine is that if you're starting to notice changes in your body, starting to notice symptoms that are lingering that you can't quite explain, maybe you're fatigued or you're getting really cold or you're getting weird like digestive discomforts and something doesn't feel right or your heart's racing, whatever it is, like there's something happening in your body. And it could down the line connect to autoimmunity. We don't know that in that initial stage necessarily. But the sooner you really get on top of it, the sooner you get curious, the sooner you start to recognize it as, okay, something's not quite right here, or maybe this is calling me forward to change something in my life, whether it is my diet or it is like what stress is around me, then yeah, the sooner you can clear some of those symptoms and, put the symptoms into remission before it even forms a diagnosable autoimmune condition. I think that's something that's so important is I think there's so many people, autoimmunity is going to keep rising at this rate, right? There's so many people who have the pre-symptoms but don't get diagnosed, and so they just keep living their life as
Mhm.
normal,
Mhm.
but then it manifests later on down the line.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when it comes to health and healing and well-being, I really advocate for people to really pick up on their bodies and connect to their intuition. And this is something I believe kids should be taught from a young age, and schools should emphasize this as well, is getting to know your body, learning how it changes, because the body changes over time, but what feels natural and healthy and normal and just like aging, and
Yeah.
what feels like, like this is, I
Mm.
don't, why am I tired every morning?
Mm.
Like, why am I going to bed exhausted, but I can't sleep? These things that just seem, if you look at it with common sense, they don't seem really functional as a creature, as a living animal and human.
Mm.
So, and then like how can we navigate this? How can we better take care of our bodies? And I think, yeah, there's a big transition we need to go through as society in general, but
Mm.
it's really it's one of those things where a lot of people don't recognize it and realize it until it's already a big, big
Yeah.
issue in people's lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess from that, what would you recommend for people who are kind of going on that journey who might have pre-autoimmune symptoms or
Mm.
yeah, little niggly symptoms and they know something's off, but nothing's really coming up at the doctors.
Mm.
People are telling them they're fine. Like you had initially, right, when you saw the doctor, like, oh, it's all
Mm.
fine, it's all good. But you're
Yeah.
like, no, something's not quite right here.
Yep.
Like, what do you recommend to those people who are
Um,
going through that?
First, I recommend I always work on the basis like there's that, the whisper, the feather, the brick. So the body is always, as you mentioned, always whispering to you. It'll tickle the feather and then boom, it will land a brick if you don't listen. So the first thing is like just acknowledge, like tune into the body and what's actually showing. Because I think it's really important that you've mentioned we have become normalized to these symptoms, which are there's so much autoimmunity going on. So it's like, what's going on for you? Like even just track some of your symptoms and write them down. And the second thing would be like, I would explore. I'm a big believer, and I know you are too, of the multifaceted approach. So go get your bloods done with your doctor, tell them your symptoms, get it all documented. Then you will generally be pulled forward to see a practitioner. You'll notice someone, you'll see it a couple of times. That's your body being like, hey, I want support. So notice what you're feeling called to explore. And then if you notice the head coming and being like, there's nothing you can do, it's just normal, like just be like, I think have awareness and be really curious. And I would say follow the curiosity and work with practitioners that are holistic in different ways. I went from the doctor to a functional doctor to a naturopath. I actually worked with a functional nutritionist after that. I just realized I actually worked with a spinal attunement, spinal energetics person as well to work with the nervous system. And I mean, I've worked with so many different practitioners. So it's like follow the urge to work with different practitioners because every single practitioner will give you something different and you'll incrementally all these things are making a difference. Now, when you're in the mindset of I'm wrong, there's something wrong, I'm stuffed, I need to fix. That mindset isn't going to really serve you well. So it's like be curious and be aware and trust that everything you're doing is going to help and don't take one person's advice as like gospel. Always question. That's my
Yeah.
biggest thing. Always question. So awareness, curiosity, and question. and follow your intuition. Now, if you're in a really stressed out state, like a lot of autoimmunity, I'm not sure what you find with people, tracks back to the nervous system and the stress state of the body. So the other thing would be like, what are you doing to support your nervous system? And if you've been doing something by yourself for a while and you're not noticing a difference, call on support. I am the biggest believer on calling on practitioner support. When you work with multi-practitioners, you're really getting that full-rounded view. And when you follow your intuition on what feels right and what doesn't feel right, it leads you on like this little path. And when you
Mm.
let go of the fixation of I'm wrong and I've got to get it fixed, your path will transpose into something that's going to help you and you're going to move through this, but you have to let go and trust what your path is taking you. So, yeah, support your nervous system, be aware, be curious, and ask questions. Never give up hope. That's the biggest thing. Like, honestly, I got told I would always be on medication. I got told that my life would just be like this. I got told so many things. But where I'm at right now in this state right here today is my energy levels are really great. My nervous system is now stable. I do have some thyroid markers going on, but I'm not being defined by my results. And I think that's really important because one thing I've noticed with my journey and seeing my mother go through it and my sisters is like, and you'll know this with blood work, the fear of the blood work coming back, the fear of the results, the fear of the, I remember getting results and being like, oh my God. And I felt good, but then I saw the markers and I was like, why is it high? And then I defined how I felt based off my results. So
Yeah.
trust your body. If you feel okay, and maybe you don't have any symptoms, and then you've got something and you thought you'd move through it, and you're like, if you feel good, trust your body and your intuition. Just the biggest thing you could do is give yourself time and space to move through it. Yeah, be curious, ask questions, and trust you. Gather your information and move through the journey with an open mindset. That's, I guess, the framework that I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And like with the blood work, it's so true. It's like that effect where, yeah, if I'm kind of thinking of like the placebo, in the
Yeah,
sense
yeah,
where, you can be given a sugar pill and feel better. It's because
yeah.
of how you're internalizing and making it make sense. And
Mhm.
so like, yeah, if you feel good or your blood markers come back and you're like, oh, that's not good. And then
Mhm.
you're telling your body there's something
Yeah.
wrong, there's something wrong, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And so the body responds with, yeah, okay, well, there's something wrong. You've been telling me this, so I'm going to start
Yeah.
showing you that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And that's where I really feel like when it comes to the nervous system or when it comes to the connection between the brain and the body,
Mhm.
is how we talk to ourselves and how we talk about ourselves and how we talk to
Yeah.
the body is so important. And a lot of people think that's quite woo-woo and
Mhm.
airy-fairy. And it's like, well, the brain is like, we can all identify that the brain is thinking, right? And we can all also identify that everything in the body is connected. And some people would be like, "Nah, I don't know, is it?" But it's like, okay, well, if it wasn't, then you wouldn't be in this one form, right? You would be a bit over there, you'd be a bit over there. Like
Yeah.
there's physically, like it's
Very
all
cool.
meshed
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Literally.
So yeah, it's quite literally together.
Mhm.
So then there's like a roll-on effect. And so
Yeah.
same with the nervous system, right? It extends throughout the whole body and the nervous system connects to the brain and connects to the
Mhm.
spinal cord. So every time you think something, it's sending chemical messages into the body.
Mhm.
And while it's not the thought, like the words,
Mhm.
it's chemical signals. And the body makes sense as to what those thoughts mean chemically, right? And what that means, what the body needs to do in response to those
Mhm.
thoughts and how the body perceives the thinking mind. And because the thoughts tell you if there's a threat around you. Like
Mhm.
it's if you perceive something through your senses, it goes processes in the brain, right? Like if there's a threat and you perceive it through your senses, that sends the signal then to your body. And so
Yeah.
you may not in an acute situation, you may not consciously be aware of the thoughts because
Mhm.
it's happened so quickly. Like
Mhm.
classic example is a lion or a tiger pops out in
Mhm.
front of you, instantly shock through the body.
Mhm.
You play out the fawn, not probably not fawn in that case, but the flop or the fight flight
Mhm.
response, right? And so, but in different situations, less acute, more chronic, like how we think day to day, that same process is happening, but it's just maybe at a slower rate. because
Yeah.
we're still thinking, things are still going through the mind, we're still sending chemical signals into the
Hmm.
body.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a key is how we understand our condition, how we understand our body, and if we actually do connect to it or not. And that's where, like you say, tuning into the nervous system and doing practices or um, kind of shifting your lifestyle in such a way when you where you incorporate things that leave you feeling really calm, safe, and settled.
Mhm.
We need to keep reminding the body that it is safe.
Yeah.
And I think anyone with autoimmunity, that is key. Because
Yeah.
what is happening is the immune system is active.
Yeah.
And the immune system is your tissues are implicated in what the immune system is targeting. And so you
Hmm.
want the immune system to settle. And the more the body feels safe, the more the immune system can settle because the immune system gets active when it perceives a threat and an invader. And if the thoughts are telling your body that there is a threat and that there is, whether that's from the external environment or the internal environment, then the
Hmm.
body's going to keep playing out that immune response. So it's such a big, big factor. Um, so yeah, I really love those key, um, like that key advice that you gave around how to approach it. And I agree, like go see a doctor, get your blood tests done,
Hmm.
see what they have on offer, but
Hmm.
question.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to do something because one person told you to. And that's where I've, done work with like the self-empowerment when it comes to the health
Yeah.
system is
Yeah.
not necessarily um not putting the health system, not dismissing it, not being like, oh, you're
Yeah.
wrong, like,
Yeah.
but it's how can I use it and how can I get what I feel like I need from this system? Because it is really helpful. It's really
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily want to take everything at face value because we are all different.
Mhm.
And so that's what I say. Like when you go to a practitioner, when you go to a doctor, like you go for you,
Mhm.
you go prepared with
Mhm.
questions, with insight. This is your health. Like you need to
Mhm.
take an interest,
Mhm.
right? They can only know so much. And
Mhm.
it's nothing, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It just means there's a lot of information out there and they've been trained in one specific way.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, go prepared, have an interest in your own well-being in your own body and um, ask questions, ask for blood tests, know
Mhm.
what they do, know what they test for.
Mhm.
And when you get your results, have a conversation. What does this mean? What are my options? How can
Mhm.
I approach this? And if you don't like the answers you're given, look somewhere else,
Yeah.
and not in the sense of like, bruised ego, but in the sense of
Oh,
like, this doesn't feel in alignment. And that comes to the intuition. If you're like,
yeah.
it doesn't feel right for me to be on medication for the rest of
Mhm.
my life,
Mhm.
I'm going to look at alternatives
Mhm.
and try.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
honestly, when you get to a point where you do have conditions and chronic health
Mhm.
conditions, like,
You'll try anything, eh?
try, 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 and that'll tell you
Yeah.
what's working and what's not. And the more of us who take an interest, the more of us who really explore our bodies
Mhm.
and sacrifice that comfort of not having to think about it or just
Mhm.
getting on with life and
Mhm.
yeah, like dismissing it and trying to live normally, the
Mhm.
more of us who really take an interest, the more we can prevent this going forward, or the more we can yeah, shift the collective approach
Mhm.
because so many people are getting sick, and not just with autoimmunity, but like
Mhm.
with women, there's endometriosis, there's PCOS, there's so many things with the menstrual related symptoms and things, and for men, more and more infertility and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot changing in the world, and I really, really feel like the more of us who show an interest in our health and well-being, the more demand there is for that service, that care, and the more the world has to reflect our demands and our needs. And that's
Mhm.
just how the society we live in works, right? It's
Mhm.
based off partly demand. And so we have to start that with initiative. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Let's see if there's any other questions.
There was one little thing that triggered, if I can share,
Yeah.
when we're talking about like try and trust and follow your curiosity, there was actually one practitioner I forgot about mentioning, and this was really quite pivotal for me because I'd been working with kinesiology, done the naturopath, the functional nutritionist, the functional doctor, and there was one guy, I can't even remember his name. He was like a wizard in Auckland, and he worked with like muscle testing, but on this deeper level. And I actually got to have one appointment with him in December. That might have been December 2022. And
Mm.
what he actually picked up, so he worked quite structurally with the body, that my tailbone from the crash, from the car crash I was in, which was actually 2016, it was curved under, which meant that
Ooh.
my nervous system was still activated. Now, I'd worked through so many layers of the crash. The C2 was jammed. I'd been through chiropractor. I'd been through everything. But when he did that adjustment with releasing that, I noticed a huge shift in my nervous system. And that was because I had the curiosity to and felt like I wanted to see him and needed to see him. And that was a big shift in my nervous system stability as well. Because I actually remember the next Christmas and New Year being like, whoa, I actually can feel calm and present. So I guess it's like hope, but curiosity. And that one small appointment added on top of everything I did have a huge impact in my nervous system stability as well. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because I just remembered that. I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it is. It's like an accumulation effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
As same as we can accumulate toxins and trauma and all the things that trigger autoimmune response or any chronic health condition, we can
Yeah.
also have an accumulation effect of what is healing.
Yeah.
And, the more we open our hearts and our minds, because I know sometimes initially we can be like, I don't believe that. Like,
Mm,
I
mm,
don't know how that's going to work. He's just
mm. Yeah,
fluffing
it's
his
just
fingers
yeah.
around in the air. Like, what is he actually doing? Or whoever it is, right? So,
Yeah.
but the more we can lead with curiosity and with an open mind
Yeah.
and let go of the criticism and the judgment, because I know we can be very quick to judge and
Yeah.
criticize and be very resistant to hearing new ideas.
Yeah.
And because we get scared, and we also, a lot of people don't want to waste their money, which
Yeah.
I get because when you get into that
Not cheap. Yeah.
chronic health era, like it can be expensive.
Yeah.
I do understand that. And that is like one of the things that I think is a big thing that collectively we need to navigate. But yeah, I think it's just really, really important that we don't just dismiss things straight away and we start to lead with an open mind and an open heart. And yeah, if something feels off and like you do feel like it's not working for you,
Mm.
try something else. And like I've seen different practitioners where I just felt like, oh, this isn't quite right. It was right for maybe a period in my life,
Yes.
and then I grow out of it, and then it's like, okay, let's try something different, and just trusting that path. Like it's not about getting all the answers all at once. And I think sometimes that's what people expect. They're like, I
Mm.
have this problem, I want it fixed, and I want it fixed now.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Not
I
how it
get
works.
it. I get it. However, I don't think it's going to work that way. And even if you were to take medication, it's not going to fix the
No.
problem.
Yeah.
And it's possible that in the future you'll need either more medication or
Mm.
additional medication because it hasn't fixed the problem.
Mm.
And so, no matter what, in that sense, no matter what, whether you go the traditional Western route or whether you go holistic, it's not something that's going to be fixed straight away. And that is just something to come to terms with. Like, okay, my body has changed. My
Mhm.
life has changed. My
Mhm.
experience has changed.
Mhm.
There's emotions that are coming up to the surface. Like, this is really hard. And acknowledging when you're in the thick of the challenge and you feel a bit lost, you're not sure where to turn, you're not sure where to get help from, really acknowledging that. And then also, yeah, being able to ask for help, like you say, I think that's so key. And everyone needs to ask for help sometimes. I need
Yeah.
to ask for help. You need to ask for help. We all like the more that we can come together, let go of any shame or guilt or like I'm supposed to be
Mhm.
perfect and have it all together.
Mhm.
And the more we can come together and share our experiences, that in itself is very healing because we start to open and trust
Yeah.
again. And a lot of people with these conditions aren't very trusting. They have, yeah, they lack a lot of trust. And for whatever reason, and that is, yeah, for whatever reason or for whatever events have happened in their lives, that has led their body to believe that it's not safe to trust.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I feel like kind of going through that process for everyone as an individual is so important to like explore and not I know it can feel really serious and really big in the moment, but let it be a little fun. Like let it be I'm trying something different. But the key is because when your nervous system is stressed,
Mm,
I know that the concept of fun is like the furthest
mm,
thing from reality, right? And there will be phases in life when you're in the thick of it where it's like,
mm,
just don't even talk to me about this. Like, I do not want to hear it. This is hard.
mm,
And so, what would you, yeah, I'm curious about this. What would you recommend for those times when there's someone who's in the middle of a flare up, like their energy is dropped, they're in the hopeless place,
mm,
they're feeling so stressed, they can't even see the light of day, like,
mm, mm.
because that happens to a lot of people. Like, it's like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah,
what do you recommend then? Because I know with you and I, we've practiced this a lot for
yeah,
ourselves. You know,
yeah,
we can still enter that space, but
yeah,
we've been there before, we've been out of it, we know the process, we know the cycle, we know how to emerge. But there's some people who don't necessarily have that. They
yeah.
haven't practiced that, they're new to this. How would you recommend they begin that shifting their energy to one that feels a little more hopeful and
Yeah.
self-trusting again?
Yeah, I would, for anyone that's in the thick of it and they're can't see the hope. And this is when I believe that when you're in that phase, you're like this, yeah. You're like you can't see anything apart from your experience that you're in. That's when you need external support. So whether
Mhm.
that is a practitioner or you're talking to someone in your family or it's a doctor, whoever it is, you need support because you need someone with eyes that are more open than yours. Because I know that when you're in that phase, there is no hope, and your brain is telling you it is done. I have a vivid memory that I share sometimes when I talk about it of being in the shower, being like, I will never be myself again. I just vividly remember being like, this is my life, and I could only see like this. So
Mm.
that's when often at the darkest moments is when I was like, it's like, I'm open, let's do something. It's like call on support. You need to be supported in those ways. Now, I understand that not everyone can get support, but maybe it's sharing with a friend or a coworker who might know another practitioner. Like by opening in that moment to just share with someone, whoever it is, will open a possibility for you. Like through my darkest moments, in those moments, that's when I opened for support. I would just say call on support of someone to help lead you through it. And then often one little thing will open a bit of a situation, which will open another situation, which will lead to something else. So yeah, call on support and get the support that will help you through that time. And the other thing I would say is bring everything back to basics. So
Mhm.
often in these times when we're dark and we're deep and we're in the pit, our logical mind goes, you've got to do all these things, eat healthy, do this, do that. And often that very thing that your mind is telling you is absolutely not what you should do. So I know now, looking back at my darkest times, I went from that to do, like, yeah, I called on support, but I also did 75,000 other things that perpetuated my cycle because a lot of my stuff was there's something wrong, I need to fix it, change it, and I want to move on now. So it was like, bring it back to basics and call on support would be my two key things. Basics meaning
Mhm.
movement, walk outside, listen to some music that might lift your mood, whatever it is, give yourself
Yeah.
something nourishing. It doesn't need to be the strict thing. If that's too intense for you, bring it back to basics, like
Yeah.
having a cup of tea in bed with your toast. If that feels aligned for you, just give yourself that and give yourself the space. And maybe your nervous system just needs a moment to catch up. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say call on support and then bring everything back to basics and just layer off the expectations and all the things you're putting on yourself. Because I do believe that a lot of the autoimmunity is us like overcomplicating and being in this active mindset of like, I've got to do all these things, I've got to do it. Like it's like simplify it. Simplify and call on support would be my two things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I fully agree. And finding your joy,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what is going to make you feel a little bit lighter in
yeah,
this moment.
yeah,
And like you say, if that's just having a cup of tea or putting some
yeah,
music on and having a dance,
yeah,
or going outside and hugging
Yeah.
a tree, like
It's
get in the water, jump in a
go
body
for a
of
swim in the
water, or
sea. Yeah.
go to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that just leaves you feeling a bit lighter, feeling a bit better, and
Yeah.
that is where you start. And as well, like you say, I fully agree. Call on support, and that is something I have done because I've been through the ups
Mm,
and the downs over the years, and I had a flare up of all kinds of things in my
mm,
body
mm,
a few years ago. And it was new. There was a lot of change in my life.
mm,
I was navigating new things
mm,
and personally and figuring out how to do all how to move forward with my life.
mm,
Um, and I started to I think I wasn't sleeping well and I was a bit more stressed. And so I started to develop all these different symptoms. And every new symptom that came, I would stress and I would panic.
mm,
And then it kept accumulating and accumulating and
mm,
accumulating. And I would have panic attacks, big panic attacks.
mm,
And because I used to get a lot of pain in my body, and not just pain like I stubbed my toe, but pain that is deeper and I can feel it in my nervous system. And it
mm,
like shocks through my whole body. And it feels like if I take a wrong move, I'm going to snap. Something's going to snap in my body. So there's a lot of rigidity can come up,
mm,
or and in the past has. And so there would be this big like waves of panic, and I would freak out, lose my mind, and really could not see the light of day. And in those moments, I was so looking for answers. I was like, I need to fix this. There's something wrong, like you're saying, right? Like, really, like, there's something wrong with me. I need to fix it. What's the answer? What's the answer? I can't afford it. Like, even if, if only I could afford it, then everything would be fixed. And like, kind of finding ways for how it's not working for me. And
mm,
in that time, because I had been through multiple cycles of my health, and this was just a different kind of flare, a different kind of trigger. In
mm,
that time, I was able to be like, I'm letting go of
mm.
shame and I'm going to go ask for help.
Good.
Because I had already been on that journey for a long time of healing, and my ego sometimes likes to tell me I know it all, but I don't.
You
And
shouldn't
like,
be here. You know it all. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, you've been here before, or like, well, you should know better. And like, calling on
Mm,
help means you're not good enough. Like, you should
mm,
have known. And so, yeah, letting go of that. And I went out and I asked for help. I went to practitioners,
yeah.
chiropractor, and, different people. And I told them how I felt honestly, openly. I cried and I was like, I feel like I'm dying. And that's
Mm,
because that's how I would feel in those moments. I would be so panicked and so stressed in my body. It felt like it was breaking and that I was going to die. And I was just like, I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to lose, you
yeah.
know? And if I'm gonna die, then I might as well ask for help and just as much as possible get that support. And I did, and that really, really helped. And it helped me. One, I was given verbal reassurance from someone else
Mhm.
who is in the field, who has dealt with other people, who knows a little bit, who's been through it themselves. And I was giving nurturing words and kindness and support. So,
Yeah.
so that's really important. Wants to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, the kitties want some.
Yeah. So that's really important of like, yeah, talking to people where you feel like you're going to be met with compassion,
Yeah.
and not like dismissive,
Yeah. Yeah.
and getting, because a lot of times when we're in this place, we feel isolated and we feel lonely because people don't seem to get it. We're going through all this stuff and it feels like the body's against us and we're so alone in that. And so when you start to like be vulnerable and share the emotion and the grief and the pain that you're going through, and genuinely, not from defensiveness, but genuinely coming from a place of I am hurting and I really need help. And starting to let that in, that can really help through those
Yeah.
challenging times. You just have to open the heart. And I think that's what happens when we get pu pushed down or broken down into that point.
Close it. Yeah.
Yeah. And part of the journey there is to open the heart again and to
Yeah.
rebuild trust in others and in ourselves. And so, yeah, I think that's really such a powerful part of the journey, and it is so worth it as well once you find the right people that can support you. And yeah, we all need a little bit of support along the way, and the
Yeah.
more we open ourselves to that, the more the journey can become fun as well.
Yeah.
And you can make new friends by finding
Yeah.
different people too. And I think that's so helpful and supportive because when your life does change and your health does change, the people in your life currently may not understand.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you kind of start to relate to them differently
Yeah.
because your worldview changes. Like
Hmm.
things just shift.
Hmm.
And so it can be really helpful to find and talk to people who have experienced something similar, who have been through it, who kind of understand, and you feel a bit more supported and you feel like you found your tribe in that area of your life and like you're not alone anymore. And because
Yeah.
that sense of isolation and loneliness in itself is really
Yeah.
um, scary for the body and the nervous system. We know we're very tribal
Yeah.
creatures and we like to feel seen and heard and connected. So, yeah, I think it takes that initial step of vulnerability
Yeah.
and courage to
Yeah.
take that first leap and be like, I'm gonna ask for help. I'm gonna go out there and what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, things can really, really improve just from that and from starting to let people in and receiving the help as well. So yeah, I fully agree with that being a key.
Yeah. That made me remember two key points through my journey, and I didn't even mention that, but the point, those very, very sticky points, like the one in the shower. There was one where I was having my husband, bless him, he was like, "You just need to listen to a podcast," and he gave me a coffee, and he had this podcast about mindset, and I remember sitting there like trying to drink my coffee. It was like 7 a.m. I mean, coffee for nervous system. Like I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like right reaching, and then he was like, he realized he was like, whoa. And I was like, oh, I think I need help. And it was in that moment I was like, oh shit. And I was vulnerable enough to be like, fuck, I need support. I don't know what the hell. And it was this vulnerability of sharing where I was at, releasing the shame in that
Mm,
moment of going, I need the support, but bringing the shame, but being like, ah, and it's almost like creates an opening for possibilities. And throughout my whole journey, I've always been really vulnerable. And I think I'm not sure if there's a pattern. It'd be interesting to see if you think about this with autoimmunity and masks that people wear, like hiding if that pretending like it's okay because you don't want to upset anyone or you everything will be okay. But for me, it was a lot about pulling those masks away and being like,
yeah.
I'm not okay because for me in postpartum, I looked because I'd lost like 14 kgs because I couldn't eat. Everyone's like, you look amazing. And I'm like dying inside, like, really? Oh. Like, it's like getting past the shame of like, but I look okay, but why do I not feel okay? And talking
Yeah.
and being vulnerable. That's just such a key point. Being vulnerable with where you're at and sharing with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on a really key point there is the correlation between people pleasers
Yeah.
and people with masks and autoimmunity. And I believe it's Gabor Mate who has really explored that. And
Yeah.
there is one, women are much more prone to autoimmunity. And I think that's to do with hormones partly
Yeah. Yeah.
as well as yeah, conditioning
Yeah.
and the burden women
Yeah.
carry
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally in terms of trying to have everything together and be the fixers and the leaders in relationships and in people's
Yeah.
lives. And yeah, putting on that mask of I'm okay, it's all fine, and burning themselves to the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
And so that is a theme and a tendency
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
women overworking and
Delivering.
not, yeah, overgiving and not honoring their needs, and asking for what they want. And I know you and I have heard this a lot recently, be the woman
Mm.
who asks for what,
Be the one who
what she
asked.
wants.
Yeah.
But I think it is so important. Like part of a woman's vulnerability is different for men potentially in some ways is there's similarities across both, of course.
Hmm.
But for us, it's like really learning how to ask for what it is we do
Yeah.
want and what support we feel like we need,
Yeah.
and not feel ashamed to ask for
Yeah.
help. Like, yeah, maybe technically we can do it all for a period of time, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not sustainable. And it doesn't mean we're weak. It
Hmm.
means we're human,
Yeah.
first of all.
Yeah.
And it's so important to be able to rely on each other.
Yeah.
And it means that we can complement each other with our skill sets and with what we're good at, and learn to let people in and build a foundation that is not on your own two legs, but on a group.
Mm,
And um, I think that's so, yeah, just so important for people. Like, we grow up in a society where we feel like we have to do it all ourselves. And
mm,
for a lot of women, it's we need a job and we need to raise kids and we
mm,
need to, breastfeed those kids for 2 years and we need to um, take care of our partner. And sometimes
mm,
that's the man child. And so,
yeah,
and we need to like make sure the household runs and the finances are okay and the food is cooked and on the table.
exercise and eat well and
Yeah, and we need to look good because
and
if
we
we
need to
don't
look
look,
good.
yeah, if we don't look good, well,
Yeah.
that's a problem. Like a lot of there's a
Expect.
lot of more spoken about now, but I was going to say
Yeah.
unspoken pressures for a woman, and part of it is societal conditioning and how society has kind of turned out, but part of it now is also embedded in our ancestry, embedded in the generations, and how our parents were brought up and how their
Mm,
parents were brought up, and it's just been passed down through the lines. And but we do have an opportunity in the world that we live in to start to change that and to change that dynamic. And I think what I found really helpful in my relationship and in my family life as well is asking for help
yeah.
and letting people in and being
Yeah.
vulnerable and saying like, I'm actually really, really struggling right now, and knowing that that doesn't make me a bad person, knowing that that doesn't make me worthless and not good enough, and that the people in your life that love you, they don't love you because you're healthy.
Mm,
They
mm,
love you for you.
yeah.
And this is a conversation I had with someone recently is when you're in a position of you feel like you have nothing to give to the world, like you're so burnt out, you're so unwell, like you've got nothing, and
Mm,
people are still showing up for you or people still love you, like
mm,
those are your people,
yeah.
right? They love you
Mm,
even if you can't give them anything right now.
yeah.
And that's magic, like that's
Yeah.
powerful. And so that and it proves that we we are not we are not what we do in the world. Like there's
Yeah.
something more to us.
Yeah.
There's something magical there that pe some people love and are drawn to and will stand by no matter what. And same goes for people in our lives. Like there's
Mm,
people in my lives who they go through challenges,
mm,
and they go through struggles. And
mm,
while it's hard for me, obviously,
mm,
when you see someone struggling, it is challenging.
mhm,
But you can still love them and you can still offer support. You have to have boundaries, that is key, but you can still offer support and love and guidance along that path. And it's not
mm,
because of their actions, behaviors, it's something way bigger than that. It's a deeper
mm, mm,
connection.
mm,
So I think yeah, that's a really important thing.
mm,
Um, yeah. There is
mm,
one other thing I would
mm,
love to check and see in
mm.
your personal experience. So
Yep.
personally for me, I have explored a lot with my diet. That has helped me immensely. Like
Mm,
from being a food addict and binge
mm,
eater
mm,
and
mhm,
tubs of ice cream and all kinds of stuff,
mm,
right?
mm,
I had to learn a lot of like what foods work for me and how can I implement
mm,
this sustainably. And
mhm,
it doesn't look like societal's norms. It's very different. I eat a
mhm,
lot of meat. I eat a lot of veg. I have dinner for
mm,
breakfast every day. Like
mm.
the labels of breakfast, lunch, and dinner blurred for me. It's just
Yeah.
meal, meal, meal.
Mm,
And it's not always met with understanding. A lot
yeah.
of people still don't understand it. So I would
Yeah.
love to hear, and I know my journey, my experience with food is going to be different from others with
Mhm,
autoimmunity, but I would love to hear what you have found has worked for you
mm,
nutritionally,
mm,
and
mm.
yeah, any insights you have to give on that
Yeah.
topic.
I think mine has been interesting as well because if I look back at the start, it was like it really was quite dependent with my mindset. So I was like, I'm gonna go keto, I'm gonna do this. And it was like when I came from that place, I didn't really get the results that I needed because it was like driven from my head. So
Mm,
nutritionally, like ideally, like cutting out the processed foods, eating more whole foods, taking off the sauces and lowering down. Like I don't eat gluten. I have a little bit of dairy with butter and cheese, but not so much since the last 2 weeks. Like kind of my methodology is like simplifying and eating clean most of the time. And then I have like, you know, a 80/20 kind of like way that I work because when I go too hard, I often like because there's this mindset thing and I came from, you know, the good girl and people pleasing, there was this like too intense made my inner rebel come out and then
Yeah.
I'd break it. So I'd like almost sabotage myself a little bit, but I'm actually moving out of that pattern now. And now that I've worked through that on an emotional sense and metaphysical sense, and I
Hmm.
actually recently moved through a sickness in God, when was that? Was that August, September? September, where I met a part of myself, which was like a 13-year-old part of me, and I saw when my inner rebel actually came from. It came from a place where she was really hurt, and the inner rebel came in to save me and almost said to my parents, "Stuff you, I'm gonna rebel now." So I got the correlation of why I rebelled. And then as soon as I've got that correlation, now in a food sense, I'm like, oh, I can go more, you know, 100% and not break it all the time. So I'm just in the past 2 months, I'm playing with that. And it's actually served me quite well. Like we just did the 14 days and mostly stuck to that. And when I was doing it, I didn't actually like, I didn't rebel too much. And so I guess, yeah, I would say like for someone navigating through this journey, don't ever feel like when I'm looking back, don't feel like you have to over explain and tell people why you're doing things. Like there's this thing where we have to explain, I'm doing this because I've got this. And it's like, just be like, I'm doing this because it feels better in my body.
Yeah.
I would say don't over explain and play with what feels right for you, but always correlate your mindset on those, like how you're, if you're noticing you're trying something and it's not feeling good, being like, what do I believe about this? Or how do I actually feel about this? Am I putting real
Mm.
pressure on myself? Or can I take a bit more of a relaxed attitude? Because what I've noticed as well with autoimmunity, especially with my mum, she'll go 100%, but then if she has one little slip up, she'll really berate
Yeah.
herself. That's what I got stuck in as well, like the and almost that's worse, you know what I mean? So it's like
Mm.
playing with extending the rubber band, not to an extreme. I'm not saying going out and, you know, having McDonald's 5 nights in a row, but I just mean like expanding the rubber band a little bit to play with your level. So
Yeah.
it's like, don't over explain, see what works right for you, try multiple things, trust your body, and then, you know, find your happy medium. It might be 100% everything. I know that you love that, like you feel good in that. For me, because of my upbringing, I'm like, I've nearly broken through those patterns, and now I can actually go more to that sense now.
Mm.
But play with it, don't over explain, and just be real curious for what your body's telling you as you're going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I fully agree. And I feel like there there are definitely with autoimmune, there's definitely certain things that
Yeah,
could be triggering.
yeah,
Main
yeah.
two are gluten and dairy.
Gluten and dairy, yeah.
And gluten tends to be the most. Technically, there's nothing wrong with those foods,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Particularly, like, there's nothing wrong with the gluten stuff. I
mm.
think it's partly to do with the glyphosate and the
Yeah,
pesticides and herbicides that's causing an
yeah.
immune response. But that's the world we live in.
Mm,
And
mm.
so I would say with autoimmunity, those are the two foods to really start with.
Like, yeah.
Like you've done my health and healing,
Mm,
that is an autoimmune protocol, basically what I've given everyone there. And it works for a lot of people,
mm,
doesn't work for everyone.
mm, mm,
And so it's really important to, yes, be aware of certain um, things with food, like food
mm,
can be triggers and it will
mm,
be different for everyone. But like you say, start, I would say start slow
yeah.
and let go of the attachment of trying to get it all right. And the key thing, and this is where is a journey I've been on too. So
Mm,
I did used to eat a lot and I would think about food all day
mm,
and I wouldn't always eat healthy. I really tried, but I had a really funky relationship to food. It
mm,
was basically my drug. And so
mm,
that I would go through a shame cycle. I would have
mm,
a binge, I would feel ashamed, I wouldn't
mm,
process my emotions, so I would want to binge to numb out. I would
mm,
feel ashamed, you know,
mm,
and go on that cycle. Also, there were, I think, in my body hormonal imbalances that was really driving this as
mhm,
well. I depression and things, and it was
Mm,
a cascade of events.
mm,
But I think with people, when it comes to anyone who has a chronic condition, I do believe fundamentally, yes, over processed foods,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
not going to help.
No. Yeah.
That's just they're not really food
Yeah.
fundamentally. And if
Yeah.
you think of it from an energetic, constitutional kind of standpoint, a lot of these foods are dead. They don't have any life force in them, and they're
Yeah.
kind of chemically, the way they're structured, aren't fully identifiable by the body as nutrition and
Yeah.
nutrients, which means it's not going to fuel the body optimally.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
just something take your time to get your head around with it, like little micro steps, because I believe a lot of people are addicted to food. A lot of people
Yeah.
are emotionally attached to
Yeah.
food. I
Yeah.
still am. I
Yeah.
still have that.
Yeah.
And I just know better how to navigate it.
Yeah.
And so it's like start little by little
Mm,
and be aware of that. And I would say, yeah, maybe start with the gluten and the processed foods, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And from there, you really want to be addressing the emotional stuff. Because, like you say,
Absolutely.
if you go through a cycle of I restrict for this
Mm,
period of time, I have a slip up, I binge, or I give myself a hard time, or whatever it is, you've got an emotional cycle playing out. There's shame, there's guilt, there's things that are happening in the body,
mm,
that goes way beyond the food.
yeah.
And this is where I think healing that is so key, because food is fuel for the body. It keeps the body alive, it keeps the body moving, and we want to be able to eat. I believe we want to be able to receive pleasure from food. It's a very pleasurable thing. It's like,
Yeah.
yum, this is tasty, or this makes me happy, and it's social. There's so
Mm,
many elements to food. But we
mm,
also need to be able to honor the body. And if there's something we're eating, we might like the taste of it, but if it leaves us feeling awful the
yeah.
next day,
Yeah.
we've got to learn to balance those scales a little bit,
Mm,
and shifting the palate so that we can find simpler foods, maybe less overwhelming for the senses, less like, wow, this is incredible, and more like
yeah.
finding pleasure in the simple things. But
Property.
that
Yeah.
is a transition because the body is
It
so
is.
adjusted to
Yeah.
over flavored,
Yeah.
overstimulating food that there's withdrawal symptoms. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
matter of like there just is.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's really important to, yeah, explore for yourself what it is that works for you. And also, if you feel like you're really struggling on that food journey of like you feel attached to the food, you're going through emotional cycles with it, and giving yourself a hard time for it. And like, yeah, you're really struggling socially because a lot of people, you go out and there's none of the food that really works for your body, and you don't know how to talk about it. That's where
Mm,
I would say as well, working with someone, because I
absolutely.
think we're in a place, in a time and a space where a lot of people are changing their diets, and a lot of people are experimenting with it and realizing certain foods makes them feel better, and some certain food makes them feel less, like not so good. And it's important to honor yourself in that journey and in that change. And um, whether you decide to, stick with it, or you decide to shift it, change it up a little bit, like honoring that path, and not letting all the kind of external narratives and
Please.
things, yeah, like get in the influence,
Yeah.
or take over your decision making. And so yeah, I really think navigating the attachment to food, the relationship to
Yeah.
food is so important,
Yeah.
and how your body understands it. So if you like pick up a piece of cake and you're like, I'm going to eat this cake, and you're looking at it and you're like, this is really bad for me. I know I shouldn't do this.
Mm,
You've already
mm,
decided that
yeah.
it's a problem.
Yeah. And then it's
So
needed.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there's like layers to it. And like you say, I'm very much I do like to be quite simple with my diet, and that's
Mm,
the point where I'm at in my life. And I do see a world in which there's beauty in that, in the
there is.
simplicity,
Yeah.
and it's coming back to nature. It's coming back to eating food of the earth, and you can make it fun and exciting. You've
Yeah.
got the fruits and the vegetables and the meat, and
Yeah.
you can make things and make it really exciting. And so, yeah, part of my journey here on this earth and what I want to share is that is much more in alignment with nature. And I understand the joys of all the food that we have available to us, all the elaborate things you can
Mm,
now buy. Like we all want to try the latest thing, right? I
mm,
totally understand. But it's like technology. It's like your
mm.
screens.
Yeah,
There's
so true.
always a new game. There's always
Yeah,
a new exciting movie. There's always something
yeah,
new. But it's feeding the cycle of
yeah,
um, like brainwashing,
yeah,
addiction,
yeah.
and it's not necessarily leaving you feeling better in the long
No,
term. It's
no.
instant gratification. And this is where I feel like there is a give and take in terms of a lot of people need to wake up for it. And that is part of my journey and my mission here
Mm,
is the food you see in the supermarket on those in aisle shelves
mm,
is not always food.
mhm.
And I do get passionate about it, and not everyone agrees with me. But I think we're coming to a place where more and more people are realizing that it doesn't leave them
Yeah,
feeling better. And as soon as they start to try something else, they're like, whoa, I don't know, I
yeah,
was feeling crap every day. And
yeah.
so, in saying that, like, I will still have certain things every now and then. Like,
Mm, mm, mm,
Christmas is right around the corner. I'm gonna
mm,
make some whole food treats, or I'm gonna eat a little bit of this, and that's okay. I don't
mm,
think I'm in a place in my relationship to food where I understand my body, and so I'm okay with it, and I understand my emotional systems, and I know how to navigate that, so I'm okay
mm,
doing that.
mm,
But if, like, for people to do it every single day and live
mm.
their lives off of these things, that's where I'm like, question that, get curious,
Yeah,
because it's also the consumerism. It's also what it's packaged in. It's also what factory it's made in. It's also the fact that it could be moldy. We don't know. It could have heavy metal toxicity. Like, it could be, yeah, it could have heavy metals in it, because of where it came from or whatever
mm,
it is. A lot of the time we don't even know what ingredients are on the list. Where
uh-huh.
did it come from? And we had this conversation, like
Yeah,
certain
yeah, yeah,
things, some of these
yeah,
some of the things in our food, they're made from
mm.
parasites or they're made from black mold. And it's
Yeah.
like, would you just eat that off the bat if you saw
Normally,
it in front
yeah.
of you? No. So why is it okay all of a sudden because it's dressed up in
Mm,
this
mm,
blue packet with bright pink
mm,
and sprinkles
mm,
on it, you know?
mm,
Um, and so, yeah, I think that's a really interesting journey to go on. And when you are put into a chronic health situation,
mm.
you're much more inclined
Oh, yeah. You're like,
to want to shift
yeah,
your food and your nutrition and your
yeah,
diet. And yeah,
yeah,
so I think for people it can be overwhelming in the beginning. And that's like what you say, you don't need to over explain it. Start with yourself. Like this is about
yeah,
you and your journey. And keep it simple and
yeah,
start small, I think. Start
yeah,
small. And if you feel you've got that real emotional stuff going on, there's a lot of resistance to the change, there's a lot of challenge
yeah,
in terms of changing your food, and you feel that kind of diet culture feeling of like restriction,
yeah,
indulging, and yeah, it feels like an unhealthy cycle, or it feels like it's not, yeah, it feels like it's perpetuating a problem, then I would
mm,
also say get support
yeah,
because I think it's so common for people to go through that cycle and then blame diet culture or blame like, oh, everyone's just saying eat restrictive. And it's like, it's not about eating restrictive. This isn't about eating restrictive. This is about learning your body's needs, learning what makes you feel better and what that looks like. And it
yeah,
just happens to be sometimes that it means not eating some of the over-processed foods that we might have once eaten,
yeah,
or it might mean removing something from your diet temporarily. It's
yeah,
not, if you look at it as restriction, you're already limiting
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah.
But
You are.
think about all the doors it's opening for you.
Yeah,
Health, more health means more money because you have more
yeah, of
energy to
course.
do things,
Yeah,
and your relationships are better, your
yeah,
body feels better, like all these things. But we always bring it back to restriction, to limiting,
yeah,
to
yeah,
I'm taking
yeah,
all these things away from my diet, and it's
yeah,
really sad.
yeah,
And yeah, you got to go through the grief because there's a lot of nostalgia when it comes to food,
yeah, yeah,
childhoods and things.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but I think a lot of people, the viewpoint is the perspective around food, the emotional attachment, and the believing that removing these foods is toxic.
yeah.
I think that's we've got to have a societal shift of like,
Shift in the mindset of it. Yeah.
Yeah, find the balance, find the balance.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to learn there, but
There is. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Gosh, yeah. There's so much to learn about, yeah, the mindset of having to do these things. And I remember even just doing the 14 days with you, like I could feel my tuning fork, my intuition sharpen in those
Yeah.
days. I was like, whoa, because I'd taken away, and it was just sauces, cheese, and butter, and any processed stuff. But I was like, I felt my tuning fork become clearer. I was like, huh.
Mm,
Okay, and I'm like, how many years into this? I was like, wow, that's interesting. Shivers. So yeah, it's
yeah.
the mindset of I'm not having to have these things, but like, oh my God, I can tell how that makes me feel now. Whoa, isn't that
Yeah.
cool? It's like a perspective shift, eh? Yeah, that's cool. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And then there can be such a journey when it comes to there is a part of us that's like has can have that little narrative around,
Mm,
oh, I really want this food, or like, oh no, like
mm,
can be a story around removing foods, and I get that. And so I think that's a big collective. So many people we need to work through
yes.
that, particularly women
Yeah.
and our bodies and things like that. And we kind of grew up in a time where, dieting and food restriction and calorie restriction was a big thing. And so I think that is quite embedded in our systems as well.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think it's really important to acknowledge that there are those layers, and it doesn't mean that restricting or removing certain foods is the problem. It
Yeah.
means that there's a long-standing narrative around food that's a problem, and that we can, and our
Mm,
interpretation of the situation that we can actually navigate and yeah,
mm,
uncover so that changing your diet doesn't have to be such a big deal.
mm,
Like, why is it such a big deal in the first place, right?
mm,
What stories are
mm,
underlying that? And it's
mm,
interesting you say the clarity around the intuition. When I did
mm,
carnivore diet for 3 months, so just eating meat
mm,
for 3 months, my channel was the most
mm,
open. I had the most clarity
mm,
and was so connected, like
mm,
spiritually as well during that
mm,
time. That yeah, I haven't really had or I've had moments of it, but it was just
mm,
so open. I felt just
mm.
things dropping in so quickly and so effortlessly. And um yeah, I find that it's a really interesting exploration. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying for anyone to go out and do carnivore, like, if it really aligns with you, go for it. But
Try things,
yeah,
just
there's
see.
so much more
Mm.
to
You
it
can get to
than
so
just
much more. Mm.
yeah, and what feels aligned to you. Like for some people, meat is not the vibe, but for
Mm.
some people, it really is. And, don't just do it because you've seen someone on Instagram do it and they're telling you to do it. Do it
Yeah.
like if it feels aligned, and ease into it and get to know your body and what leaves you feeling better and what leaves you feeling not good. And your body will tell you those signals. And so, yeah, I just find it really interesting how food and our spiritual connection and our purpose, our connection to life purpose and um our general how we feel about the world is so impacted by our nutrition. And, like I might try carnivore again one day to connect back into that
Mm.
as a spiritual journey.
Mm.
It's
Oh.
not for me, then it's like not just about the food and how it impacts my physical body.
Mm.
It's my connection to
Mm.
yeah, the non-physical, and to opening my channel to receive information and guidance and clarity
Mm.
around the next steps in my life. And,
Oh.
food then can be a spiritual journey too. It's not just about the physical and how I feel in my body, and it's all connected. So yeah, I think we need to start looking at it with more curiosity. There's a lot of judgment out there, there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of quote unquote right and wrongs, there's a lot of fear around food. And yeah, I feel like the conversation could be curiosity instead, leading with curiosity and asking other people what works for them and having open conversations where one person's not telling the other that you're wrong, like, but just
Mm.
communicating about it and being like, oh, that's a really interesting experience. This is what's worked for me.
Mm.
It's interesting that it's different than it
For
is for
you.
you,
Wow.
if that's the case, or it's the same. Interesting. And then, because the more we have those kinds of conversations, the more we can actually learn. Whereas if we're constantly criticizing and judging and putting each
Oh,
other down because,
over it.
we think someone else is wrong, it's like, one, it's perpetuating shame cycles, and it's also perpetuating fear around food, and that
Mhm.
we can't find an answer. Um, but the answer is not out there. It's internal, it's intuitive. So yeah, I just think that's a really interesting thing. Um,
Mm.
yeah. Was there anything else you'd like to share?
Um, well, there was only one other element. Oh, it just shows how like multifaceted it is. But just like I was thinking as you when we were talking about you talked about when you were going through patterns and there was hormones going on. Like I actually forgot that there was a liver element for me that I had to work on for a couple of years with all of this because I had high toxins in the body. So yeah, there's nothing else to mention, but I was just like thinking, man, it really was so multifaceted. And like you just said before, I think the best thing you can do is lead with curiosity and be
Mm,
open and talk. That's like if there's going to do three things, lead with those and trust that your journey, everything that you're moving through is temporary and there is gold on the other side.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good way to finish. I
Oh, well,
love
that was
that.
lovely. It was so nice to chat.